Alright, starting from a fresh scene, I'm going to go ahead and create another box like we did before. And I'm going to pass up all of these translation, rotates, and scale. And I'm going to go to this little thing here that says Polycube in my channel box. I'm just going to click on this. And you can see right here it says width, height, and depth. Right now it says 1, 1, and 1. So what does this mean? It means that this cube is 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. Maya is set to centimeters by default. So if I want it to be 1 meter, I can just type in 100, hit F, and there we go, it's 1 meter. Okay, so why is this important? Alright, in the future, as you model, you'll also want to render your models, or you may want to bring them into a game engine, or you may want to just send it to another program. When you do that, these sizes matter. You want to try to build all of your stuff to a real world size. Now, sometimes we don't have the measurement of what the real world size is, although I suggest you check before you think that you don't know it. That's why we have Google. Right? But for an average male, we usually say it's 60 by 180 by 60. I don't know if that would be average. That's actually a 6-foot male. So if I go ahead, by the way, click outside of this, or otherwise you will you'll still be typing in there, or you can hit enter for that matter. Just hit enter. Okay. If you're setting this to like Unreal, this is like typically what we consider a 6-foot human in Unreal. Excuse me. So this is important. When you render stuff, the lighting, it's going to calculate things based on what a real world size is. If it's a random size, then your numbers that you're inputting in are going to be random, and you're going to have to test to get those random numbers right. And then everything else in the scene is going to be basically the same way. So it actually is going to cost you a lot of time. So what you want to do is you just want to try to build your stuff, and like if you have to, just make a reference box and then build your stuff by a reference box, or use a measure tool, which we can look at later. There is measuring tools in the Create measure tool. Okay, so now that we've got this average male size, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at how I could snap this male to be standing on basically what the level ground would be in this scene. Now, we know that he's 180 in height, and half of that, of course, is 90. So if I come up to this translate here and I hit 90, I can go ahead and just translate it 90 through there, and I know it's going to be sitting perfectly on the grid. You can see the grids right here. By the way, if you don't like your grid in your scene at certain times, you can turn it on and off. So that's one way to do that. But sometimes you don't want to do that. You just want to be able to snap it to the grid. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that really quick. Each piece of geometry has a pivot point. And typically the pivot point for a primitive is going to start off in the center of the object. This is still a primitive. If you have these numbers set up in here, it is still primitive. So if I go ahead and I hit W on my keyboard, you can see that my manipulator comes up what looks like dead center. Let me go ahead and show you that. Let's just go to my front view and hit F, and you can tell it's right on the center line of the grid. So yes, it's in the center. By the way, I probably should mention that if you needed more polys, you could, you can actually add polygons to a primitive while it's still in this primitive state. Eventually, when you start manipulating these, you will get it out of its primitive state, and you won't be able to enter some of these numbers in. It won't work. So, but I should also mention that you want to keep your stuff as resource savvy as possible. Don't make it 100,000 polygons if you only need 50 polygons, because it's going to tax your computer. So there's no reason to be working with a heavy grid on this piece of mesh for no reason. Did I just say that? Yes. Okay. So anyway, let's keep going. I want to move this pivot point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit insert on my keyboard. And you can see now that something's changed. That's showing me that I actually have my pivot selected. And I can actually move my pivot. So if I go ahead and start pulling this, you can see the box is not being pulled. It's actually my pivot point that's being pulled. Let me go ahead and turn off my pivot manipulation by hitting insert again. And I'm going to go into a different view. Let's go ahead and hit F. All right. Okay, this is the front view. And I'm going to go to my rotate tool. And I'm just going to start rotating this. So you can see it's not rotating off of the center like the first video is how the box was rotating. Okay, this could be very useful for certain things. Like if you're trying to rotate something around, another object or something, this could be something that you use. But in this case, we want our pivot to actually be snapped to the bottom here. So then I can snap the bottom of this object to the grid line up here. I know it sounds kind of complicated. It's really not. Let's go ahead and get into our side view here, or our front view, and I'm going to go back to my move tool. I'm going to hit insert again, and I'm going to go ahead this time, instead of just moving it randomly like this, I'm going to hold the V. You're going to see it's going to have a circle around it, and then I'm going to start dragging that. And you can see what happened was it popped up here first, and then it popped down here while I was still holding V. Okay, let me do it one more time. So I'm going to pull it off, I hold V, and I start moving this. Now it's snapped up there. I have not let go of V yet. I'm going to pull it down there. Okay? What's happening is that the moment you hold V, you activate this little button right here. All of these little magnets are snap tools. Now I can turn this magnet on and just go ahead and do it this way without holding V. The V is a shortcut. I always suggest using shortcuts because in the long run, you're going to end up working faster. All right, so let me go ahead and I'll turn this off. All right, so now that I've got my pivot there, I want to hit insert again, and it turns off my pivot manipulation. And now I'm going to go back to my 3/4 view here, and we can't see the grid because the grid's in the middle. Let's go ahead and turn on wireframe. Now we can see the grid. So this is a little nifty tool, wireframe. And I'm going to go ahead and just hold X on my keyboard. So X is grid snap. This is also grid snap. If you don't want to hold the X, just go ahead and turn this guy on. And as I hold X, I'm going to start dragging up, and I'm going to try to snap to the grid. Now it's hard to do in this view because it's a 3/4 view, so I can't really see where it's snapping to. So in this case, this is where you may want to use an orthographic view. So I'm going to hold X again, and then I'm going to snap to the first level there of the grid. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go back to here. Let's turn our wireframe off. And now we have a guy standing on a surface. All right, let's make some other objects. Let's go ahead and make a sphere, and let's move that out. Oh, it's so tiny. Let's make it comparable. Let's say, so the radius is only 1 centimeter. Very small. So let's say 50. So overall the diameter will be 100. Okay. And let's just go over the process one more time. This time I will just hit the insert button, and I will just turn on my vert snap, and I will drag this down to, did I miss it? I think I missed it a little bit. There, that center point right there. Okay, now I'm going to hit insert again, turn it off. Now, if I want to snap this, I can go ahead and snap it to the ground plane, if you will. But before I do that, why don't we just move this guy over a little bit. And our snapping's still on. Let's turn that off. Let's go ahead. You know what? Let's go back into our side view, or our front view. That really helped a lot. Let's turn the grid snap on. Okay. Now, when you're building scenes, let's say this is the Daily Planet from Superman or something, and you've got this, globe on top of this. as long as it looks right, you don't have to have this snap to the top of the plane there. Don't worry about stuff like that. If you're building something for actual manufacturing, that's a different story. You want to make sure your stuff is precise. For entertainment stuff, it just has to look right, and it has to work right for the next person in the pipeline. That being like an animator or a VFX person. So as long as you learn those rules, and we will as we go along, you will be able to get your job done just fine. Now, if you're a manufacturer person, which I am not, I would definitely make sure that you listen to your manufacturer, your PLM professors, and make sure that that their directions are adhered to. But usually, you're not using Maya for that. Then you're probably going to be using something like CAD or SolidWorks or CATIA or Rhino or something like that. So, okay, now we have got this thing grid snapping, and I'm just going to undo that. Let's go ahead and make a few more primitives, and we'll put that one in there. And let's say height, we'll say 200. It's going to be taller than everything, and we'll say, I don't know, 50 again for radius. Okay. All right. Oh, what are we going to do here? This doesn't have like a vert in the middle. That's okay. We can just go ahead and basically, let's turn that off. We're going to turn the vert snap back on and just hit insert, and we'll just snap this to this vert out here, but as long as we use this axis in the middle, it will actually snap only up and down. So you'll see if I drag this like so you can see I'm dragging it, it's going to snap, and yet it stays in the middle because I was selecting only this one axis. So it works that way, and that's a very good tool. All right, so now the same thing with this. You'd want to go to your side view and turn that on. As you can see, you can actually have your grid and your vert snap on at the same time, which is a nice function. Sometimes you actually do need both of them. Like if you're snapping a vert to something on the grid, then you might need both. All right, so this is basic snapping and changing the pivot. And in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about how to basically group and name a scene and name the objects in our scene so we can stay a little organized.